Hello again. I'm John McDonnell. Thank you for letting me into your home again for another 90 Days, our quarterly video report about issues, events, and people important to you and me and our corporation. In this report, we're going back to school with teammates from the Missile Systems Company in St. Louis. Then our camera takes us to Douglas Aircraft Company for a close-up look at the MD-11 Jetliner as it was prepared for first flight. We'll return to St. Louis and the McDonnell Aircraft Company for a story about building the Air Force's #1 fighter, the F-15E Eagle. We'll review our financial performance and cover some other subjects in this edition of 90 Days. Sociologist Alvin Toffler coined the term future shock. He defined future shock as the stress and disorientation we feel when subjected to too much change in too short a time. Without question, we live and work with a great deal of change and stress, and like it or not, the pace of change is accelerating, with enormous impact on McDonnell Douglas. Who could have anticipated the changes in Eastern Europe or the Soviet Union and their impact on defense planning? Our military business will be affected by uncertainty and reduced budgets for years to come. On the other hand, in just 3 short years, our commercial transport backlog quadrupled. And to capitalize on this unprecedented opportunity, we're changing, hiring and training new people, reassigning engineering, production, and management talent, shifting manufacturing resources. Of course, the transition into our total quality management system is another source of sometimes uncomfortable but necessary change. If we're to prosper in the years ahead and cope with future shock, each of us must acquire new knowledge and skills that will enable us to accept and lead change on the job. Learning should be a lifelong process through formal education, on-the-job training, taking on new responsibilities, taking risks, and making mistakes. When we stop learning, we stop developing as individuals. And that's why we're placing so much emphasis on improved and increased training and education programs. It's part of our effort to make people development high priority. That training may be technical in nature, or as we're about to see, aimed at improving people skills, at helping us deal more effectively with fellow workers. Gary Kroll teaches a course like that at McDonnell Douglas Missile Systems Company in St. Louis.
SAI. I'm here to try and help you people become more effective in your dealings with other people. Now, this course focuses on...
The future is moving towards us at a very rapid rate, and it requires that people do different things. When a decision is made to change for people to do different things, one of the things that has to be considered is whether or not they know how to do it. Training, I think, is one of the most powerful tools we have to facilitate change, particularly rapidly throughout an organization. The skills that were maybe in older days or in the past were viewed as management skills or skills that are now perceived as needed by people from the very highest levels to the very lowest levels. As we work in teams and form work groups, you have people there that need to have enhanced communication skills. They have to have better interpersonal skills. They need to relate better with people in other departments. It's all interrelated. When people discuss their hindrances, the things that come between them and their objectives, almost invariably in every class, 100% are defined as
people problems. Every one of these hindrances relate back to either the thinking and actions of other people.
What they need to come to realize when they analyze the problem is that the people they've identified as problems are not walking around saying, I'm the problem. We need to recognize that difference between the way we feel the definition of the problem is and how the listener views the problem. And then we devise some specific skills that allows them to analyze the problem and plan to communicate with that listener in a way that acknowledges the listener's viewpoint.
My name is Judy Smith, and I am the QDR coordinator for the Harpoon missile program.
Judy was a classic candidate to have in the program.
But sometimes I overpower people, and I want to learn not to scare them off, but to help.
What she is saying in reality is that she's slipping from the listener's objective and slipping to her viewpoint.
I have never been a shy individual. This ought to bring a chuckle from anybody who's ever met me. I've never been shy. I have no compunction about walking into anybody's office or walking down onto the manufacturing floor or talking to the floor sweepers if they're the ones I need to talk to. I cover a lot of miles walking, gathering information and data. I have at my fingertips a wealth of knowledge in other people. And I go and I pick their brains. I need their help. I need their cooperation. You know, I'm honest with them up front. If I was trying to snow them, they'd know it.
Could you connect reducing his speed to his reputation as an outstanding truck driver? Somehow.
We have an exercise to do a persuasive communication to a truck driver. In this case, it's Edwina. And the challenge there is to convince Edwina to keep the speed in her truck below 10 miles per hour when inside the factory grounds. To do that in a way that maintains Edwina's positive attitude towards the job, towards herself, towards the boss and the company. That exercise is designed to give people a chance to try the process step by step.
We realize that there is a great deal of pedestrian traffic to interfere with drivers accomplishing their job.
Well, I think you got to play on the people's, their minds run other things other than vehicles.
Okay.
We're trying to identify what he's going to blame, what he might blame this on.
People don't watch where they're going.
The advantage is that when they're done, Edwina wants to drive slower to maintain her outstanding reputation as a truck driver. Edwina is not going to drive slower because she's afraid of some consequence. The benefit of that type of thinking on Edwina's part is self-evident. I want us to start delivering the training quicker. We need to develop ways to get things done and out in real time when they need it. It's going to mean that we're allowed to make more mistakes.
Me, listener's viewpoint.
We're training leaders to be trainers. I can't do it all myself. I can't do every person in the company. So what we need to do is to make that self-generating.
You have to be able to allow for another person's point of view. I think that's probably the biggest advantage that training and the programs that I have taken here give to all of us. It helps us find a way of making our point tactfully and yet still accomplish the goals that you need.
In these culture changes and changes in philosophies and how we do business, the toughest role is that of mid-level manager. And what happens here, we start advertising, we start campaigns, we do 90-day videos that raise the expectations of everybody within the organization. So now all of a sudden everybody's expecting tomorrow that they're going to be empowered and that all the problems and all the hindrances they have on their job is going to go away. It doesn't happen. And now you've got mid-level managers who don't know how to do what it is that these people are expecting. And so that's our role, is to come in and show them how to do it.
Thank you, Gary, and special thanks to Judy Smith for sharing her experience. Gary's right. A 90 days video, a single class, or a slogan won't bring about the changes we seek through TQMS. Change doesn't happen overnight. Creating a new culture in which people can develop and contribute to their fullest potential is an ambitious, never-ending journey, but we're embarked on that journey. I believe McDonnell Douglas should be a place where everyone has high expectations for their own performance, where everyone takes pride in their work and products, where everyone has freedom to grow and contribute to their fullest ability. Personal growth will come through trust, listening, learning, improving skills, taking risk, accepting responsibility and accountability, and by setting goals that stretch our capabilities. By emphasizing individuals and teams first, I'm convinced that outstanding team performance will follow, that McDonnell Douglas will become more than just a place to earn a living. And now let's review our 1989 results. Financially, it was the worst year we've ever had. And because of so many unusual accounting procedures, describing our results is a confusing process. We ended the year with net earnings of only $219 million, compared to $350 million in 1988. But included in our 1989 earnings was a $179 million gain resulting from a new tax accounting procedure. And we netted an additional gain of $77 million from the sale of the network systems portion of the information systems business. Now, if we remove that gain, we're left with a $37 million loss. However, included in our results are 12 write-downs and write-offs totaling $219 million, which did not entirely result from our 1989 operations. If we take them out, we're back up to earnings of $182 million. Finally, we had several unusual gains related to commercial aircraft, amounting to $42 million. Subtract that amount and we're back down to earnings of only $140 million. Although the bookkeeping is confusing, one thing should be very clear. Our financial performance was not good. Looking at each of our segments, in combat aircraft, we had improved earnings on the F-15 and FA-18 and reduced ATF cost sharing. But these gains were more than offset by $137 million in write-offs in helicopter programs, principally due to underestimated material costs and inventory write-downs on the Apache. Transport aircraft had $5 million in fourth quarter earnings and showed a small profit for the last 6 months of '89. But cost estimate increases on the C-17 and T-45 programs, obsolete inventory and close-down costs for the DC KC-10 line, and continued investment in the MD-11 contributed to a $222 million loss for the year. A laser communications write-off and tighter pricing on the Tomahawk cruise missile program crimped earnings in missiles, space, and electronics, while good performance by McDonnell Douglas Systems Integration contributed to earnings in the other category. Many of you wrote that you appreciated seeing how we stacked up against competition. Here's how we did in sales. As you can see, we ranked third in the industry in sales volume. In fact, we would have been well ahead of Rockwell except for their automobile parts sales. But when it came to earning a profit on those sales, we were not nearly as good, despite our large gains on the sale of network systems and the tax accounting changes. Likewise, our profit margins on sales are far short of the 5% a leading aerospace company should have. Despite our terrible financial performance, 1989 was not all bad. We launched our total quality management system and are through the initial disruptive phase. We are now learning and improving, developing teams and partnerships. Already we are seeing improving cycle times, increasing quality, and greater productivity in many places around MDC. And our commercial transport backlog continues to grow. At the end of the year, it was $23.5 billion, a growth of 43% since 1988. And in 1990, we have already picked up additional major new customers for the MD-11, Singapore Airlines and KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. However, on the defense side, we continue to face a declining budget and the probability that several of our programs will be stretched or phased out entirely. We are doing our best to minimize those losses. We are determined to remain the U.S. government's best defense contractor and to come through this decline stronger than ever in defense capability and contracts. In December, with our platter overflowing at DAC and with potentially flat and declining prospects in our St. Louis-based fighter business, we announced the transfer of the T-45 training systems program to McDonnell Aircraft Company. This frees up additional people at Long Beach and Palmdale to meet the expanding needs of our transport programs, and at the same time provides additional work for our experienced St. Louis workforce. We will continue to look for ways to share the load in order to keep our workforce as productive and stable as possible. Another significant December event was the first flight of the helicopter company's NOTAR helicopter. This remarkable new technology uses low-pressure air instead of a conventional tail rotor for anti-torque control. The NOTAR technology will also be used on a brand new, larger twin-engine helicopter, the MDX, expected to fly in 1992. Next up, we're off to Long Beach for a close-up look at the new MD-11 Jetliner. But first, a word from our sponsor.
I work for McDonnell Douglas. Since I never had any training in rigorous software testing, I thought it would be a good idea to take this course. When I got back to the project, I took the time and put together a slide presentation. Not only was I very satisfied that I could learn and teach, but I could see how the people on the project profited from it.
People with the power to do a better job build a better product. McDonnell Douglas, a company of leaders.
On Wednesday, January 10th, the newest generation wide-body jetliner from McDonnell Douglas, the MD-11, lifted off from Long Beach Airport for its first flight. The new tri-jet flew to Yuma, Arizona for 10 months of certification testing. First flight was the culmination of the skills, intellect, and hard work of thousands of our teammates and suppliers. 90 Days visited Douglas Aircraft Company a few weeks before first flight and arrived just in time for engine tests.
MD-11 is certainly a derivative of the DC-10. It is 18.6 feet longer. It has greater thrust engines, additional or greater load capacity. It has state-of-the-art electronics. It has an all-glass cockpit. The pilots or the flight crew get their information off of CRTs rather than analog gauges. DC-10 and the MD-11 are known as tri-jets. Beyond that, other than the diameter, they're very dissimilar. It has winglets, whereas the DC-10 does not. We have lots of state-of-the-art materials on the airplane in terms of carbon epoxy or composite material. The horizontal stabilizer is 30% smaller than the DC-10, and it contains 2,000 gallons of fuel, whereas the 10 does not have a wet horizontal. It's imperative that we get this airplane up in order for us to accomplish our goals of early fall deliveries.
We didn't have too good a day. We got through the hydraulic start. We went back through and picked up a couple places on that.
We are, in one manner of speaking, developing the airplane as we're building it. On the first article airplane, naturally, we run into a few interfacing problems, no fit conditions, things like that flare up occasionally in this operation, and we have to back up, make adjustments to the design, then get the new part or the software change or the wiring changes or whatever that might be, and implement it, and then refunction the system and see to it. Everything we do on that airplane has to be covered by some sort of document. And when we present to FAA, whether it's in this case, we're presenting them a certificate for a first article aircraft, which is a lot more involved, but even on a normal production aircraft, you have to account for all this paperwork to convince them that we have conformed to what this airplane is supposed to be built to. We have to do that before we can get a physical certificate to fly the airplane or to deliver it to the customer so he can put it into commercial service.
We are in fact experiencing some frustrations because of the level of intensity, if you will, that is being placed on the airplane. And a lot of us folks are spending a lot of time here, and upwards to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is much like a roller coaster emotionally. The We certainly thrive on the successes, and we certainly get somewhat depressed on those failures, but we maintain an equilibrium. Otherwise, it would just drive you nuts or crazy. So we have, in fact, during the course of a day, some sanity checks to make certain that we are, in fact, on course and everything is doing okay.
Our goal Monday morning was first thing in the morning to have the aircraft on the engine trim pad to do the engine functions. We came in with a little behind schedule on that, and due to a group effort and a very good group effort from a lot of groups that normally aren't involved in this, we got the airplane there in a pretty reasonable time.
No doubt that's certainly exhilarating to come off the fuel pit and go to engine run. Engine run represents one of the last things that we do prior to flying the airplane.
Okay, we're ready for a start on 3.
Okay, you're all clear for 3.
25 seconds from the time you turn fuel on. Ready?
We start the engines, go through a series of power settings, and see that the computer and the throttles are tracking and so forth.
We run at certain intervals through the power range of the engine. For test validation, we went up to 107%, which is unheard of in terms of maximum engine rating on the ground. And based on that, we only spent a very short time checking him out. It's a culmination of lots of hours and lots of effort, not only by us, but by thousands of teammates. We'll be emotionally charged beyond your wildest dreams, and that's conservative. The TQMS implementation was disruptive in nature to a level. However, before TQMS, we were certainly not organized in any fashion, and we were certainly headed toward destruction. We were destroying our company, and I believe that TQMS allowed us to understand what we were doing incorrectly in terms of managing our day-to-day business.
I think it's pulled together quite well. The last 2 months on that airplane has made a huge step in the right direction.
I would expect that after we fly the airplane, we'll take a couple of days off to get reacquainted with our families and then gear up for the second airplane, which also requires a Herculean effort in order to get the program back on schedule. The next 5 to 10 years will certainly go down as some of the most challenging this corporation has ever faced, and I would expect that those that are involved in this process today will look back at the end of the 10 years, and we're simply going to take a deep breath and go, whew, that was tough, but that was great.
Thank you, Ed Chenille, John Million, and everyone on the MD-11 program. By the 1st of February, we had 126 firm orders for the airplane worth more than $12 billion, and options for 76 more. We're already building airplanes for delivery as soon as the MD-11 is FAA certified for airline use. As a result, we're investing heavily in inventory buildup. And it's only after we begin delivering airplanes that we get paid by our airline customers. So you can understand our eagerness to get the MD-11 certified and begin deliveries. This is an RFQI, or Request for Quality Improvement. It's a form teammates use at McDonnell Aircraft Company to point out production quality problems. Unfortunately, solutions to problems were delayed by bureaucratic systems. That is, until a first-time quality committee on the F-15E program came up with the idea of a quality support team. It's a small group of engineers who take responsibility for handling RFQIs. And they deal directly with the people who are building the airplanes to identify and solve the problems. If you have any doubt that a team which is accountable can make a difference, watch as Jim Honeycutt, an F-15E inspector, and Rick Oseski, a manufacturing methods engineer, tell us all about it.
Can you see if that's going to be movable enough, or that screw is going to clear that husk jump? Is that going to move enough?
Management had a need to find out why there were so many repetitive problems, especially quality problems out on the floor. Plus, they wanted to try to get the worker involved firsthand in a better communication process. Basically, the purpose of our first-time quality committee was to evaluate our present system of quality. But it's basically a hands-on committee to deal with hands-on problems. On the floor, we run into everything that you can possibly imagine going wrong as far as assembling an airplane goes. We try to utilize our planning, our engineering, our tooling, our corrective action system, and our workmanship. And all of that led about to the formation of a quality support team, because we felt a need to have people in those disciplines on the floor when people had specific problems right at hand. The quality support team was established in April of 1989 with Rick designated as team leader, and Rick's team has responsibility of the forward fuselage area.
Jack trial fit the seat rail in between those mating parts, and we were only off about 35 to 40 thousandths. That's just eyeballing it, where it wouldn't fit. The quality support team is simply a multidiscipline team consisting of liaison engineering, liaison planning, firm planning, design engineering. We have a tooling representative, manufacturing methods. When we receive a quality improvement request from the foreman, generally, they'll call us or a shop person. We'll investigate that immediately. When we assign it to our group, we take responsibility internally for that. So now, to maintain a tracking within the quality improvement system for the company, we'll submit a Xerox copy of that work that F-15 Forward Fuselage Quality Support Team 1 has accepted that, and we'll put our phone number on it. So now we're accountable to the system, and we're responsible for making sure that engineering receives it if they need to, that tooling will work on it, that planning works on it. So we're essentially putting our names on it, that we are accountable for this piece of paper. If you want to look at it, we work for the people who initiate that document. And when they come up and ask you what's happening and you don't have an answer for them, puts you in a tough spot. Some of the root causes can actually be very simple. We had a high rejection rate on the avionics doors. We've consistently experienced a high latch load when we go to rig the doors on assembly. Over the past 6 to 8 to 12 months, we've constantly checked all the tooling, checked parts, made sure those were correct, and the blueprint, checked the blueprints to see if we had any problems. And yet we still had problems with the latch load. So last week, we essentially looked at the door again, working with the shop. We started to eliminate what variables were left, and there weren't too many left. There were only 2 seals that were riding on the door. So with shop's help, we pulled off 1 seal, and that still didn't remedy the situation. So we narrowed it down to 1 seal on the nose barrel avionics door, and it looks like that was the root cause.
A lot of people on the floor feel that a minor problem to them can be whisked away with a phone call. And I don't blame them for having that attitude, but I hope that we can convey the message that we need to research every problem that we get until we know exactly where we're going from step 1, step 2.
Well, what you got to realize, though, is that there's 42,254 detailed parts on an F-15 Eagle. So that's a lot of parts and a lot of problems to deal with. And it's not always easy to maintain a consistency because of manpower turnover, tooling wears. We could have fabrication problems, and we get those cleaned up, and then we might experience assembly problems. So it's hard to maintain that consistency over a long period of time. As far as being effective in reducing the cycle time an RFQI is handled, we've probably reduced that from 125 to, say, 43 days. The current production model of F-15, the F-15E, is a dual-role fighter. The primary purpose of the aircraft is interdiction, yet it still retains all its air-to-air capability that the previous models had. The F-15E has 2 crew members. It has a pilot and a weapons systems officer. Now, the maximum speed is Mach 2.5, which at sea level translates to about 1,850 miles per hour. The time it takes to build an F-15E from fabrication to delivery is 15 months. Now again, that seems like a long time, but you've got to remember we're putting together 42,000 parts. So it's quite a feat.
I know now the process involved in trying to research and trying to come up with a resolution to any problem that's given. I feel good about the company because they entrusted me with responsibility.
The rewards are seeing an actual change on the airplane and seeing that part go together better, seeing that operator be able to put it together, because after all, they're making the money for us. So that's very satisfying when you do implement a change on the aircraft and it does work better than it did before.
After I learned of their success, I visited Jim and Rick. They told me that the quality support team was so successful that 2 additional teams have been created. Well, again, you've sent cards in by the thousands in response to our third quarter 90 Days program, including many from our teammates in Canada. Generally speaking, you liked the program better than the first one, particularly the expanded financial section and the added scenes of our products in action. More of you are watching 90 Days with your families, and more than 76% of you learned something new that you can use at work. That's up from 62% last time. Here are a few of the comments we've received, many about TQMS. One viewer urged us to cover the true state of the implementation of TQMS. 90 Days presents a rosy picture and not the reality most of us encounter on a day-to-day basis. In that same vein, a viewer suggested that we give examples of how TQMS can be implemented in an office environment where management still stubbornly micromanages workers and sells upper management on how well TQMS is working in their areas. Another office worker stated, TQMS works fine in the shop, but the problem in the office is still the same. There needs to be real assignment of responsibility. I recognize that TQMS is not being uniformly implemented across the corporation. A change of this magnitude will take time, and we all need to keep working at it. About our story on improvements workers made to the Apache assembly line, someone wrote, I learned 30 years ago, you consult the man on the floor who has to do the work. You get a better product. He feels part of the decision and has pride. Here's a comment about the financial report. The current return on investment is despicable for a company of this stature. If GD and Rockwell can do it, we can do it. If not, why not? A few of you like the suggestion we send microwave popcorn with each 90 Days tape. But one of you wants to take it a step further. Hey, 95% of teammates have VCRs. You only have to buy VCRs for 5%. Send mine to Dan Steele, Hacienda Heights, California. Thank you. Finally, one of our viewers wrote, JFM improved. Don't tell him. He might become a network type with an open collar and a gold chain. Your remarks and suggestions do help us to continuously improve the program and the corporation. In fact, this survey gives you an even broader opportunity to tell me what's on your mind. So please send in the response cards. A final note, the Navy's Blue Angels begin their 1990 flight performances in March. So be alert for dates and times they may appear in your area. But until you see them in person, the following is a pretty good substitute.
First you hear the thunder, then you see the fire. Heading for blue yonder, you know they're gonna get you higher. Screaming down the center line, feel the rumble after burner climb. Higher and higher, angels above America, angels on high, blue angels above America, long may you fly. It's a game of inches at the speed of lightning. No one ever flinches, not the Blue Angel man. They make you proud to live in the USA as they form up the diamond, climb away. Higher and higher, angels above America, angels on high, blue angels above America,
And that's it for this quarter's report. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in 90 days.